This guy cannot stop winning. Arjun Erigaisi now up to number 4 in the world, second to only the big 3. He's on a hot streak and Vladimir Kramnik's watching him like a hawk. Are we going to see another procedure? Find out if Arjun's naughty or nice. Will a new name appear on the Kramnik scrolls? A record of all suspected chess cheaters in this world here. That aside, we need to dive in on this game here because Magnus Carlsen, world number 1, is playing white. It's titillating Tuesday, 18th of June, blitz chess, and these two get paired. Arjun, he's looking for a seat at the table with the big boys. He wants to party, stop flying economy class, so can he shake it with the world number 1 at blitz chess? We're diving in, it's online, it's elite level, and Magnus opens with knight f3. We get knight f6 in response. Both players now building a little banana hammock. Are they going to fianchetto the rook? No, sanity prevails. There go the bishops. Now both players castle and their coaches give a nod of approval. The king to safety in 4 moves. And now what does Magnus do? He goes full b3 cowboy, builds a second banana hammock here. The guy's stranded on a desert island. Awesome podcast I listened to recently, by the way. Alexander Selkirk, the real Robinson Crusoe. Have a listen to that one. We get d5 from Arjun, bishop b2, the bishops crossing swords lethally, and c5. A phalanx in the centre, dominating the squares. So c4 from Magnus, the most explosive move. d4, because obviously, and now are we going to see e3? Magnus going for a kind of Benoni pawn structure? Well, no. This is where Magnus is just playing chess out of this world. Moves I wouldn't even consider. We love to watch this guy. Before Arjun can develop any more, he pushes on with that pawn. It's given a great move. Now there's themes here of the Genko Bambit. You know, if captures, then you can go a3 and then you can do a second capture. But here Arjun says, no thank you Magnus, my tummy is full, I don't want to gobble. But there was also a second point. If you'd taken here, this massive centre pawn could have dropped. So instead we see the tension held. b5 now very playable, but Magnus decides to capture the c pawn here. He loves his seafood, grew up by the coast in Norway. He wants that one, and now we see knight e4. Preparing to recapture, opening the sniper here. d3 very natural. The c pawn drops, and now knight b to d2. So natural. But Magnus starts with a move I love so much more. Bishop a3, because it stops that queen a5 coming in anticipation if you'd started with knight bd2, and with the knight now under fire, queen a5 the best defense and a sort of attack, stopping the knight from moving, but not played by Arjun. He actually blunders in this position with a terrible move, makes you wince. Pawn to b6. Why would you do that with the sniper on the diagonal? Chess grandmasters everywhere, not impressed. That's Chucky, we love him. And now we see knight b to d2. A calm follow-up move, not immediately going for any kind of discovery. Doesn't quite work at this moment. You know, knight e5 was met by this. You just get an exchange, nothing more. So instead Magnus develops queen c7, very natural. And now I love this. How do you intensify the pressure? How would you continue here? It's really not obvious. This is so positionally instructive. Never get attached too hard to one piece. Famous example of this with Bobby Fischer playing white. I think Petrosian was black. He gives up a star piece. In that game it was a knight. In this game it's a bishop. Magnus takes, even though that one looks so active, it was his bishop pair. Why? Well, now we get knight b3. Immediately targeting that c pawn once more. He's hungry. Don't go queen a5. That's a Botez gambit. If queen b6 to defend, then you're running into rook b1. So by process of elimination, Arjun goes queen d6, covers the c pawn. But now Magnus goes knight fd2. not only opening the bishop, but huge threat. The second knight foraying forth, there's a hard tongue twister, and you're threatening to hit the queen and then take the pawn. So Arjun covers the e4 square, but in the wrong way. He had to go bishop f5, cover the square and connect these rooks. Instead, he plays pawn to f5. The king indecently exposed, but more importantly, the rooks are split. Magnus pounces on this inaccuracy. There's a tactical shot. Test your skills if you want to do so. The move you play here to take advantage is knight to a5. The knight double hit, and the key point is that if you go bishop d7 to cover, well, what's the weakness of the last move? Now you can hop on with knight b7, hit this queen here, and how do you stay with the pawn? This is the only way to do so, but then f4 in response. Why are you allowing a check? Well, you're leaving the queen now to enter the position, covering the king, covering this pawn as well, but this one's now indefensible. Nothing to be done, won't keep going down the line. Have a look around, there's nothing you can do to protect that c-pawn. Excellent for white. So that one wasn't played, bishop d7. Instead we get knight takes on a5. Ditching the exchange, Magnus takes with a skidoosh. You rarely see a top grandmaster move so many squares all in one go, and now after knight c6 we see the way is shut. A cave troll comes forth. Can the bishop be extricated? Rook b1, here comes Boromir to support, but bishop d7 now, threatening to win that one in the corner. It saves itself, and now e5, the cave troll bashing at the doors of the caves of Moria, mines of Moria even. I've taken that analogy too far, and now Magnus activates his queen here, connects his rooks and pressures on c6, as well as keeps the knight honest, or a7 drops. Arjun in a bind, and I love this now, so positionally instructive. He plays bishop h6, hitting the knight on d2. Looks so natural when the bishop was biting on granite here, but it's the wrong move. It encourages the knight to b3, where it pressures the c-pawn, and because you never moved the rook on the last move as black, which was best with the engine, now you're losing time here. Rook b8 finally comes, but Magnus cashes in. Queen a6 also good, but he takes on c6. Bishop recaptures, queen is hit, again queen a6 strong, just sitting on the head of the pawn, but Magnus instead decides to take. So natural, the pawn about to drop, and now bishop f8, finally played. Dad ashamed, what are you doing back here? The pawn meekly defended, and Magnus cracks on with knight a5, trying to exchange. He's material ahead. Good policy. So Arjun ducks, the queen saves itself, bishop about to drop, and if you go rook c8 here, I believe it's just crazy passive. Maybe there's even a tactical shot, but instead we see the bishop sliding back, allowing the queens to come off. Magnus of course goes for it, gives a little bleat, he's the endgame goat, knight under fire here, so Magnus jumps forward, hits the bishop, it saves itself, it's just a tall pawn there, and note when a bishop sits 2 squares from a knight, it dominates the forward jumps on one half of the knight's 8 jumps, and now Magnus plays a very classy move. You can go rook b2, covering the pawn, but what does he do? Pawn a4. This is the play of a master who's just had this a million times. If you capture with the bishop, it's not good. Rook a1 comes and you're in a horrible pin along here. So instead, we see rook captures, but Magnus reveals his point. Rook a1, offering an exchange. Arjun ducks it. He has to keep hopes alive, but the second rook hits the open file. Forces the rook exchange after the king moves in. Magnus simplifying, and after rook a6, you can't even go b3, or this one's coming behind very soon. So instead, we see e4. The pawn avalanche continuing, but knight d6 check from Magnus. He picks up one of the bishops. Rook recaptures, this one takes, pawn recaptures, bishop activating, but after Magnus goes rook b6, coming behind the pawn, b3 no good, rook b4 then on the way, we see bishop c2, a last desperado. Magnus takes the pawn, Arjun doesn't even take, why? c5, this is a sample line. pawn drops, king cut, bishop under fire, f4 coming, king marching in is an absolutely hopelessly lost endgame. So instead we see king e6, still hopelessly lost, and it's nice and fitting that the c pawn wins the game. Here we see resignation, Magnus doing his thing. Again, it's the same problems. If takes, then we take and all that kind of stuff. If king here, then we see here and all this kind of thing. Nothing to say. Magnus takes down Arjun, world number 4, but regardless, Arjun's on fire in classical chess. He needs to get invited to play with the big boys. Do smash subscribe if you loved this video, it really helps me out. And for another epic game between Magnus and Ding Liren in a similar structure, check out the phenomenal video on screen. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you soon.